and thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate you giving your time and getting on the tubes and making the energy to come here. So clearly we all care about the issues that we face, and perhaps one of the most significant issues that we do face is the environmental crisis. It kind of goes under the radar, and we focus on human-centered ideas, our economic institutions, the human-absorbed problems that we face. And often the environmental crisis, although it threatens the very survival of our species as humanity as a whole, we conceptualize it and we make it into something that is abstract, that is distant, and something that we need to deal with in the future. And I think it's time that we face the reality. And the democratic reform movement is about facing the reality of the problem that is getting increasingly severe and could threaten the very survival of humanity within this century. So if we, actually take on board the enormity of that, the United Nations, which says that business as usual can no longer continue, and yet emissions continue to increase with every car, plane, factory, and the whole industrialized process. And poverty constantly increases, even though we have the Millennium Development Goals. So something is very wrong with our institutions, our human-centered institutions. And although in the United Nations we have complex regimes like the Kyoto Protocol, and in the EU, which has adopted an emissions trading process, they all seem to be ineffective at getting to the root of the problem in a holistic way. So I hope this meeting today will be about looking at the deep-rooted and far-reaching reforms, democratic reforms, that are needed to create implementation and create a people-centered movement. Because it is clear to me that these institutions are failing and that there is something very wrong. And I think it might be, in fact, I have a sense that it is the truth, that it is this sense of separation between us and the environment. And in fact, this separation is an illusion, and that we are totally interconnected to the greater web of life and the greater whole, which is the universe. And this is what I think we need to address as a deep-rooted and far-reaching reform, an earth-centered reform that, although may sound far-fetched from where we are now, things are constantly changing, and we have this exponential situation going on now across the planet, a global exponential change. We've had the Arab Spring, we've had the Occupy movement, and it seems in 2012 this change, a people-centered movement, is only going to increase, and it's only going to get faster and faster because of global communication. We can share ideas. There is a greater sense, in my view, of an interconnection. And I think we're beginning to face this, and that it's no longer something that we are projecting into the future. But I feel that we're beginning to see this as something that's more immediate than we first thought, instead of believing that we need to reach targets in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. And the problem is always in the future. So it is this present time reality that I think we need to begin to make that change, which is a people-centered movement. And the democratic reform movement isn't about being against things. It's not about fighting or blaming anybody out there. The democratic reform movement is about humanity, people, individuals taking responsibility, recognizing that we are all part of this great earth, and that we are therefore but also part of the solution. So the democratic reform movement and the movements that are about humanity working together as a team are about implementation and how we can begin to implement rather than wait around and create more and more complex regimes that are rational, logical regimes that are failing to address the rapid ecological destruction we face, and that we need a greater sense of intelligence and wisdom that will come about. And it reminds me of the tsunami when the animals, they fled into the mountains, and they were ahead of humanity because they were in touch with the earth. And so, although we're about sensible democratic reforms, we're also about, it's no longer about it being an alternative issue, something, environmental issues being out there, being a separate issue from economics. In fact, it's about the earth, and it's about the fact that humanity is one aspect of the earth, and how we can create policies that are reflective of that. So I hope we have a fantastic discussion today, and we've got some really wonderful people who've come along and going to give some very in-depth talks that are about the earth-centered movement. So I just want you to, everybody, give them a round of applause for coming. And who's next?